Welcome to the Nation of History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Israeli paratroopers gathered at the Western Wall shortly after the capture of Jerusalem's Old City during the Six-Day War in June 1967. This victory consolidated Israeli control over East Jerusalem, reinforcing deep political and religious changes in the region with lasting impact on the Arab-Israeli conflict. Dutch children play with howitzer shells in 1944, while the Netherlands was suffering under German occupation during World War II. The presence of these materials in the streets shows the impact of the conflict, which ended with the country's liberation in 1945, reinforcing the urgency of resistance and civilian survival in war-affected areas. Air pollution in New York reached critical levels in November 1966 when stagnant air trapped a highly harmful haze for 3 days, resulting in the loss of 168 lives. This environmental episode highlighted the urgent need for regulations to control air quality in major cities and influenced future environmental policies. During World War II, a Chinese worker appears with a sign on his back indicating that he was Chinese and not Japanese, trying to avoid hostile reactions during a period of strong racial tension. The photo shows how the war affected Asian civilians away from the battlefield and exposed confusion over identity and discrimination. The kiss between a couple in Times Square symbolized national euphoria after Japan's surrender, announced on August 15, 1945, officially ending World War II. This moment captured the hope for peace after years of global conflict that changed geopolitics and began the Cold War between the superpowers. The London neighborhood of Whitechapel was the setting for the cases linked to Jack the Ripper in 1888, a landmark that exposed urban vulnerability and the social hardship of the time. These episodes affected public views on safety and exposed neglect in the living conditions of the poorest classes in the British capital. Harvey Cushing pioneered neurological medicine in the early 20th century, revolutionizing treatment by introducing precise techniques and careful documentation. His work created milestones in medicine, increasing procedure safety and inspiring advances in understanding the nervous system, influencing later generations. A British soldier celebrates survival in 1917 when World War I was devastating Europe with bloody battles such as Passchendaele. The image symbolizes the endurance of combatants whose courage shaped geopolitical changes and the end of European empires after the conflict. The crew of the battleship Strasbourg, anchored in Toulon in 1941, became part of a crucial chapter during World War II when the French fleet was disabled to prevent German control. This act reflected the complex loyalty of the French Navy under German occupation, influencing the naval dynamics of the conflict. Belka and Strelka were the first dogs to return alive from orbit around Earth on August 19, 1960, an important milestone in the Soviet space race. This achievement allowed advances in safety testing for human missions, showing the viability of orbital exploration and preparing the way for Yuri Gagarin's flight. English archaeologist Howard Carter, when opening Tutankhamun's innermost burial chamber in 1922, revealed one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of ancient Egypt. This discovery sparked enormous worldwide interest in Egyptian civilization, reviving research and inspiring the systematic study of pharaonic tombs in the Valley of the Kings. Fundraising campaigns for World War II encouraged the purchase of war bonds to pay for military efforts. The Fifth War Loan, held in the United States in 1944, mobilized citizens to support the fight against the Axis, showing economic and social unity for the Allied victory. In the 1960s, NASA's Langley Research Center developed reduced gravity walking simulators to prepare astronauts for lunar missions. This innovation was crucial for understanding movement on the moon's surface, driving advances that helped ensure the success of the Apollo program's crewed landings. Rural families in the central United States faced severe conditions during the 1936 dust storm, one of the most intense events of the Great Depression, which worsened the agricultural crisis. This environmental disaster increased migration to cities and pushed soil conservation policies, reshaping the region's economic future. British military engineers take a break beside craters caused by bombing, reflecting the impact of the Blitz on London in 1940. This scene highlighted civilian and military resilience during German air attacks, which was vital to maintaining the city's morale and infrastructure during World War II. An elderly woman refugee from World War I waits in Amiens with her cow on March 28, 1918, showing the civilian displacement caused by the German offensive known as the Spring Offensive. This event marked an intense humanitarian movement, affecting rural and urban communities. Benito Mussolini, still little known in 1915, was arrested after protesting Italy's entry into World War I, a conflict that divided opinion in the country. This phase marked his shift from socialist to fierce supporter of interventionism, decisively influencing Italian politics in the following decades. A dog standing among soldiers in French uniforms appears during World War I, a conflict that began in 1914 and was fundamental to Europe's political and territorial reshaping. The presence of animals in operational areas symbolizes their invaluable support for troops, reinforcing humanity amid hardship and the use of typical equipment from this crucial period. Sisters Florence and Susie Freermuth were detained in 1921 for producing moonshine, a banned alcoholic drink during Prohibition in the United States, which lasted from 1920 to 1933. This period prohibited the sale and production of alcoholic beverages, encouraging underground networks and strengthening illegal organizations. The fascination with the Paris catacombs in the 20th century reveals the complex relationship between culture and historical memory. In 1935, with poor lighting, visitors explored these underground corridors organized since the late 18th century, when remains were moved to prevent sanitary problems in the city's churches. Bessie Coleman faced racial segregation when trying to enter aviation schools in the United States, which led her to learn French and earn her pilot's license in France in 1922. This historic milestone opened the way for Black women in aviation, challenging social barriers and inspiring future generations. The statue of David, Michelangelo's masterpiece, was protected with bricks to prevent damage during World War II, illustrating exceptional measures to preserve cultural heritage during bombing. This episode highlights the importance given to art even during periods of intense conflict. Klondike Gold Rush explorers faced extreme conditions on exhausting trails in Alaska, as in 1898, when many were worn out after months of searching for valuable deposits. This rush caused massive migration and changed the local economy, pushing the region's development forward. The creation of Madonna House Nursery in New York in 1941 gave children a calm refuge during the city's intense heat, reflecting the era's social concern for child welfare in densely populated urban areas. This initiative helped promote public spaces for recreation and health during a period marked by World War II. Photographed in 1874, the fort in Colorado illustrates the United States military presence on the western frontier during territorial expansion. Fort Garland served as a strategic point for controlling indigenous territories and protecting settlers, marking the consolidation of the United States in the West, which drastically changed the region's cultural and social landscape. Sophia Loren gained international attention by attending events such as the Venice Film Festival in 1955, when she strengthened her rise in world cinema. This appearance reinforced the festival's prestige as a showcase for emerging stars and boosted Italian cultural influence in the 1950s. A horse rescue in one of Amsterdam's canals in 1929 reveals the importance of animals for urban mobility before automobiles became common. These interventions were essential for keeping traffic moving on waterways, preserving traditional forms of transportation that supported the local economy and daily life. In Austria during World War II, a boy appears smiling on a staircase after receiving new shoes, a valuable item during a period of shortages and rationing. The scene records a moment of civilian daily life amid the hardships of war. The image also shows how important clothing and footwear were in that context. Women welders worked at the Brooklyn Navy Yard in 1944 when World War II brought women into the shipbuilding industry to replace men serving at the front. Their participation was crucial for warship production, changing social roles and pushing women's labor rights forward in the United States. A Cuban leader personally contributed by donating blood after the earthquake that devastated Peru in 1962, showing international solidarity during a period marked by the Cold War. This action strengthened ties between Latin American countries and showed humanitarian commitment in the face of natural crises. Veronica Lake was one of the most memorable stars of the 1940s, a symbol of Hollywood glamour and a pioneer of the peekaboo hairstyle, which influenced the fashion of the time. Her work during World War II helped boost the morale of the American public, leaving a legacy in film culture. Louis Hine photographed workers exposed to risks during the construction of the Empire State Building, completed in 1931 in New York. The project marked an engineering advance and symbolized economic recovery during the Great Depression, creating jobs and giving hope to a population in crisis. Motorcycle polo in Oakland, California in 1919 marked a pioneering moment in motorized sports, reflecting the growing popularity of motorcycles after World War I. The sport combined skill and speed, influencing the development of motor competitions that expanded urban leisure. Indigenous people from the Blackfoot tribe in the Glacier National Park region of Montana represent Native American culture in 1913, a time of growing pressure on their lands due to United States expansion. This period marks the advance of the creation of these protected parks. The stone spheres of Costa Rica are attributed to ancient peoples and date to around 600 before Christ. They represent a milestone in pre-Columbian engineering and indicate social and cultural advances by showing organization and precision in stonework, influencing the study of Central American civilizations. Salvador Dalí made an impact by walking through the streets of Paris with his anteater, a symbol of his provocative surrealism. In the 1930s, his stylistic boldness marked a revolution in art, challenging norms and opening the way for new forms of cultural expression in the 20th century. George Harrison, guitarist for the Beatles, captured a special moment at the Taj Mahal in 1966 when the band was influencing world culture and expanding Western interest in India. The trip marked deep contact with Eastern culture, strongly affecting the music and ideas of the 1960s. Pink Floyd's first photo shoot at Ruskin Park in London in April 1967 marks an early stage of the psychedelic revolution in music. This era was crucial for the rise of experimental rock, which influenced generations and changed the global cultural scene. David Bowie, at 14 years old, reflected British youth in the early 1960s, a period marked by cultural changes that renewed music and fashion. This context prepared the ground for the rise of British rock and the global impact Bowie would have starting in the 1970s. Halle Berry emerged at a decisive moment in the 1990s as she entered the entertainment scene when the film industry was beginning to value racial diversity more. Her rise reflected important cultural and social changes that expanded representation and opportunities for Black actors. In the 1990s, actors like Sandra Bullock and Adam Sandler represented the height of youth-oriented cinema in the United States, when comedy and romance films became hugely popular, influencing global cultures and marking a generation with styles and themes clearly tied to the era, valuing everyday life and relationships. Arnold Schwarzenegger, bodybuilding star and future actor, celebrated his American citizenship in the late 20th century, a milestone that symbolized his full integration into the United States. This step was fundamental to his career, allowing him to influence American popular culture and politics in the following decades. The Apple II production line in California during the 1980s symbolizes the advance of personal computing, contributing decisively to the popularity of computers in homes and offices. Released in 1977, the Apple II was innovative by combining a user-friendly interface and graphics capability, driving the industry and global technological development. The use of punched cards to store data marked a significant technological advance in the United States, shown by 62,500 cards representing 4.5 megabytes in 1955. This innovation made automated information processing possible, driving the development of computing, a crucial foundation for the digital age. Hewlett-Packard was founded in 1939, a crucial milestone in technology history that pushed forward electronic computing and measurement instruments. This pioneering innovation allowed major advances in industry and scientific research, establishing HP as a global reference in precision and electronics. Gary Anderson created the iconic recycling symbol at age 23, while participating in a contest in 1970 representing the growth of environmental awareness. This logo became a milestone in promoting global sustainability, influencing recycling campaigns and policies for decades. Niels Bohlin revolutionized automobile safety by inventing the V-shaped seat belt in 1959, an innovation that greatly reduced serious traffic injuries. By opening his patent to other automakers, he contributed to the worldwide adoption of this device, saving thousands of lives in the following decades. Engineers faced the challenge of dividing a 7,600 metric ton structure, about 8,378 United States tons, marking a notable technical advance in the 20th century. This achievement allowed urban buildings to be remodeled and expanded, driving architectural and urban development by offering solutions for reusing and modernizing existing structures. The Paris World's Fair in 1900 represented a milestone in celebrating the innovations of the late 19th century, highlighting advances in transportation and architecture. This global event showcased technological pioneering, such as balloons and airships, which anticipated the age of aviation and shaped worldwide industrial and cultural progress. The first airmail flight in Western Canada in 1918 marked a crucial advance in regional communication, using planes with wooden propellers and pilots wearing sturdy gear because of the weather. This innovation sped up the exchange of messages across vast areas, contributing to the territory's integration and development. Walter Botts, the model who inspired the iconic figure of Uncle Sam, represented the symbol of United States Army recruitment, whose image became firmly established during World War I and World War II. This representation strengthened American patriotism, encouraging voluntary enlistment at decisive moments in United States military history. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which gained prominence between 1929 and 1960, became a mass cultural event in the United States. Celebrated since 1924, it boosted the entertainment industry and retail commerce while strengthening family tradition amid 20th century social changes. Night street races emerged as a cultural phenomenon in the United States during the 1940s and 1950s, inspiring youth movements and becoming iconic in films such as Grease, released in 1978 and set in the 1950s. These informal contests reflected fascination with cars and the search for identity. The 1930s reflected major social changes in the United States, when divorce began to become more visible and less stigmatized. The Nevada sign, from a state that pioneered more flexible marriage laws, symbolizes the growing attraction of places that made legal marriage endings easier. The division of Berlin into Allied-controlled sectors after the end of World War II symbolized the new geopolitical order. The line between the American and British sectors reflected growing tensions that would lead to the construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961, restricting freedom and marking the Cold War. Hundreds of thousands of Parisians gathered on the Champs-Élysées in May 1968 to support Charles de Gaulle during a deep social and political crisis that had paralyzed France. This mobilization was crucial in reaffirming presidential authority in the face of student and worker protests. Thousands gathered in Delhi to hear Queen Elizabeth II, a symbol of the connection between the United Kingdom and post-independence India. The 1961 visit highlighted Britain's effort to maintain diplomatic relations despite recent colonial ties and India's search for greater global autonomy. Dolly Parton's visit to soldiers during Operation Desert Storm in 1991 marked an important moment of morale support for American troops in the Persian Gulf after Kuwait was freed from Iraqi occupation. This cultural gesture reinforced appreciation for service members in conflict. In West Germany in October 1959, protesters marched with flags against the way the country had been treated in the post-war period. The scene records political tensions still alive more than a decade after the conflict. The act also shows the weight of war memory in European society. Bear River City in Utah shows a typical American Old West town in 1868, shortly after the United States Civil War, when westward expansion accelerated settlement. The presence of saloons and rustic wooden buildings reveals the social and economic organization brought by the arrival of the train and local trade. The main street of Pendleton, Oregon, reveals a typical late 19th century setting when urban expansion in the American West still depended on local businesses such as blacksmiths, bakeries, and small banks. The First National Bank symbolizes regional economic consolidation. In the United States, the transport of huge California redwood logs by logging trains around 1884 marked the peak of industrial expansion and natural resource extraction. This period intensified railroad growth, boosted economic development, and accelerated the clearing of these ancient forests. Vernon Evans and his family left the region hit by drought and grasshoppers in South Dakota in 1936, looking for a fresh start in the Pacific Northwest. This rural exodus was a result of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, events that caused mass migration and affected American agriculture and the economy. Children played in the streets of Spain in 1934, a moment marked by political instability before the Spanish Civil War, which began in 1936. This tension affected daily life, reflecting a society under heavy pressure that was about to face a major rupture with lasting consequences for the country. Postal workers in Greenville, South Carolina, show a typical 1914 team reflecting the expansion of postal services in the United States before World War I. This era marked the growth of communication and infrastructure, driving the country's integration and socioeconomic development. Cats and kittens cross New York Street in 1925, a period marked by rapid urban growth and the city's consolidation as an industrial and cultural center of the United States. The 1920s brought advances in transportation and urban life, reflecting deep social changes. Drivers in a Moscow race in 1982 received tires as a prize, reflecting the value placed on material resources in the Soviet Union of the time. Automobile competitions revealed the search for entertainment and athletic prestige, even in a context of economic limits and strict state control. In the 1950s, the popularity of recreational fishing in the United States encouraged 24-hour services, such as automatic worm vending machines, which were useful for night fishermen. This convenience reflected the growth of consumer culture and the new post-war leisure lifestyle, changing habits and local commerce. The rise of supermarkets in the United States beginning in the 1930s revolutionized food retail by offering a wide variety of products such as milk, coffee, bacon, and cereal in one place. This model made access to fresh, packaged, and processed foods easier. The design of the toaster with an Edison-style socket reflects the electrical revolution that began in the early 20th century, when standardized plugs made household appliances more accessible and safer. Around 1909, this innovation helped popularize home appliances, changing daily habits and making expanding urban life easier. The 1940s marked a transition in women's fashion with the rise of high-waisted bikinis, like the one worn by the actress photographed in 1945, reflecting a cultural shift after World War II. This innovative style influenced women's body freedom and redefined beauty standards in film and advertising. At Roosevelt Field Mall in Garden City, New York, Christmas 1982 brought together shoppers drawn by lit storefronts and the typical 1980s fashion marked by period cuts and colors. This setting symbolizes the growth of malls as centers of leisure and commerce in the United States. The strict control of guest behavior shown by a warning against snoring reflects common practices in 20th century hotels when order and silence were valued to ensure shared comfort. This kind of rule illustrates the growing formalization of urban tourism, essential to the expansion of lodging and the consolidation of the hotel industry. Wearing a military hat and typical 1940s clothing, the man poses on an urban street filled with buildings with exterior fire escapes, reflecting the architecture and lifestyle of the post-World War II period in the United States. This era was marked by economic recovery and urban growth. In the United States, the 1950s stood out for rising prosperity and suburbanization after World War II, a time when large families, like this mother with her 10 daughters in Boston, symbolized traditional values. Economic growth and the role of women in the home reinforced the image of the family unit. The Marine Angel, about 597 feet long and 69 feet wide, sailed along the Chicago River in 1953, showing the peak of river transportation for large vessels in the post-war era. This event highlighted the strategic importance of urban rivers for industry and trade in the growing American metropolis of that decade. Women who wore crinolines around 1860 lived in an era shaped by the Industrial Revolution, which made mass production of fabrics and fashion accessories easier and made this style more accessible. The use of these frames showed social rules and women's roles, reinforcing a silhouette imposed by Victorian fashion as a symbol of status and femininity. 19th century couples reflected strict social rules and clear differences between gender roles, with formal clothing like the man's top hat and women's lace details showing social status. The 1850 photograph appeared after the invention of the daguerreotype in 1839, a crucial milestone that made portrait photography more accessible. The discovery of an intact terracotta warrior revealed precise details about the military art of ancient China, dating back more than 2,200 years. This sculpture is linked to the burial army of the first emperor, whose creation marked an advance in preserving and studying the Qin period, shaping the understanding of military organization and imperial culture. A dentist in China prepares to extract a tooth in the 1920s, a period when traditional medicine still existed alongside Western techniques that were beginning to be introduced. This phase marked an important advance in dental care in the region, promoting better practices that contributed to local public health. Cuban workers in cigar factories in the early 20th century listened to readers who read aloud to ease the repetition of the work. A common practice in 1900, these readings helped maintain motivation and culture among workers, especially in a context of intense industrial exploitation. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.